My name is Jacob Capizzuto, and this is my presentation for senior project in the 2018 summer semester at Youngstown State University under Dr. Adam Earnhardt. My presentation is titled Cognitive Dissonance and Donald Trump. So here we go. As far as why I chose cognitive dissonance theory to study for this project, when I read about it, I thought it was a very prevalent theory, I guess, especially right now. When I was reading what it was, it felt as though it was happening. It felt like it was real. It felt like it was relevant, and it felt like I could relate to it pretty easily, rather. It felt like I could relate it to the real world political climate that we're in right now, but more specifically that political climate on social media. So because of all of those things and because of how I felt I could relate it to the real world with pretty easily, it definitely felt like the right topic to do. So before I go into my research, first we're going to look at what exactly cognitive dissonance is. Cognitive dissonance was first studied by Leon Festinger in 1957. He defined dissonance as it being diversive and that people would try to avoid it. He said that people change their beliefs to match their actions, and that, people seek reassurance after making a difficult decision. So it's to kind of sum that up. Cognitive dissonance is essentially when you have a certain belief or an idea or an opinion, and you're presented with facts or even just opposing beliefs, but pretty much you're presented with the truth, I guess, and it's when you avoid that truth. It's when you, to not change your own beliefs and opinions, you just simply avoid it, to avoid the feeling of dissonance. Like he said, dissonance is aversive and people will try to avoid it. So that sums up cognitive dissonance pretty quickly. So why is cognitive dissonance a problem? It's counterproductive. It's extremely counterproductive. And the question I asked, how can we find a middle ground without first having our own ideas, opinions, or beliefs challenged? I think the way that we kind of evolve as humans is having our ideas, opinions, and our beliefs that we kind of form on our own. When we present those to other people that don't necessarily have the same, or it's shown that our opinions, ideas, or beliefs are misguided or not totally true or in the right, I don't see how we can evolve when we simply avoid the truth and when we avoid this feeling. You can't ignore. When we experience dissonance, we can't necessarily ignore it because we're feeling that, because we may or may not be in the wrong. And but yeah, having those ideas challenged is definitely very important for us to evolve as people and for us to evolve as a society. Having discussions and conversations, and it matters, and it's very prevalent, especially today. As far as the previous findings with cognitive dissonance theory, I pulled up two articles that I found from Blake McKimmey and April McGrath, both in 2015 and 2017. I looked at some studies done by them. So for McKimmey in 2015, he looked at cognitive dissonance in groups, which I thought was extremely relevant given that I was specifically looking at social media where it's just full of people. And one of the points he brought up was, it's called diffusion of responsibility. And I will just go ahead and pull a quote here. He defines diffusion of responsibility as the reason that social support reduces dissonance. This is especially relevant in the realm of cognitive dissonance in social media. Due to the platform being as large as it is, you will almost certainly find an audience whose mindset aligns with your own. If you have a group of people agreeing with you, then it essentially gives you a sense of validation among your peers, reducing the feeling of dissonance. So yeah, again, it's when you're surrounded by people that agree with you or that share those same beliefs and ideas as you, it makes you accept your own beliefs, or even beliefs you're kind of on the fence on. It kind of pushes you to the edge and makes you accept those beliefs when there's other people around you that also agree with you. It's just that sense of validation. And like I said, on social media especially, it's very easy to find people that share the same beliefs and ideas as you. And it's very easy to experience dissonance because there's a lot of other opposing beliefs. So when you find these people that you agree with and you kind of get together, it kind of creates a dangerous precedent, because it's just this group of people that just don't want to accept the facts or even have their ideas challenged or anything of the sort, which personally I think it's extremely counterproductive. And then the other article is from April McGrath in 2017. She brought up a good point, and she called it distraction and forgetting. She said, and quotes, "Distraction allows individuals to divert their attention away from their dissonant cognitions and avoid the negative affective state caused by dissonance. Conversely, presenting participants with an attitude change opportunity may actually be a less efficient reduction strategy because this reminds participants about their dissonance." So she's pretty much saying that distraction, or looking for a distraction to avoid your dissonance, it is a method of reduction, which is what she talked about in this whole article. But it's not the best, and it's not really the most productive. I keep going back to the word productive because I think that's kind of what it comes down to. But it doesn't fix anything. It doesn't really change the situation much, if at all. So now we're going to look at, after seeing what cognitive dissonance is and some of the studies that people have done, we're going to look at my question that I came up with to research for my own personal research for this project. So my question was, how prevalent is the cultivation of cognitive dissonance among tweets posted by the President of the United States, Donald J. Trump? I asked this question because I thought it was extremely relevant, and when I read cognitive dissonance and what the theory was, this immediately just came to my mind, so I just felt like I had to go with it. So yeah, this is what my question was, and now I will talk about my research method and how I obtained my research and my results. So my research method, I decided to do a quantitative research analysis on July 17th, 2018, starting at 11 o'clock in the morning. I looked at the last 100 tweets posted by the president's Twitter account, Donald Trump. So as of that time, I looked at everything, the last 100 things that he posted to his Twitter account as of that time. So before I looked at these, I came up with some categories, some tweet categories, and I'll go over those real quick. The first one I came up with is fake news. This is a term that he uses quite often. It's how he describes the media, but more specifically the mainstream liberal media, I guess. He uses it just to label the media in general as fake, or as one-sided, or leaning, or corrupt, or whatever word you want to use. So the fake news category would be when he pretty much trashes the media. The second category I chose is denial. This is when the president would tweet something where it's clearly obvious that he's in the wrong, or he's presented with something and he feels the need to kind of divert from it, or not divert from it, but prove otherwise, I think is the best way to say it. So that was denial. Next we have delegitimization. Delegitimization is when he pretty much uses those silly nicknames that he gives to a lot of people, like Crooked Hillary and Lion Ted, and all those other silly nicknames, to pretty much tear down in a way to his supporters and just try to make them seem less than they are, or like I said, delegitimize them. Next we have self-defense. So this is when I found a tweet that it was obvious that he felt the need to defend himself for whatever reason. So whether it was a statement or a story that came out about him, he would turn to Twitter and he felt the need to defend himself. And then the next one is self-affirmation, and this is once again pretty much him feeling the need to turn to Twitter and pat himself on the back for whatever reason. This happened a lot, and it's easily the most common thing that he does. He just feels the need to congratulate himself and tell himself that he is in the right, he's doing the right thing, and that everyone else that opposes him is in the wrong. And then the final category is non-statements, and this was pretty much anything that was a retweet or a video, anything that was a tweet posted that wasn't necessarily a statement made by the president. So now we will look at my findings. So as far as tweets containing any fake news references or references to the media being fake, there were 10 tweets out of the last 100 that contained this. As far as denial, there were 21 tweets in the last 100 that contained denial. There were 12 tweets in the last 100 that contains any delegitimization of anybody or anything. The next one, self-defense. There were 29 instances of self-defense where he felt he needed to defend himself for whatever reason. And then self-affirmation, there was 40 instances in the last 100 tweets posted by the president of self-affirmation, congratulations, or patting yourself on the back for whatever reason. And then there were 46 non-statements. So out of the last 100 tweets, 46 of those tweets were either retweets or videos or just statements not totally made by the president. And in the last 100, 39 of those tweets contains at least 2 of the 6 possible categories that I came up with. So what do these results show? As we can see the little summary here. I thought that fake news would be the most prevalent. I don't follow the president on Twitter. I don't pay that much attention. I don't try to necessarily. But I thought the fake news would have been much more prevalent than it was. But after looking at them and after knowing who the president is, with there being 40 instances of self-affirmation in the last 100, self-affirmation of himself, where it would be his words saying good things about himself. It wasn't too much of a shock. It was, and I think it's evident. It's more evident that cognitive dissonance is present in the president's Twitter account and in the president himself, because it's as if he uses that to avoid any dissonance, and he uses it to tell himself that he is doing the right thing and that he does have supporters supporting what he's doing. And I think that goes with all of these categories that I came up with. It all lends itself to dissonance, and it all lends itself to, although I'm shown something different that is either true or I just don't agree with it, I will do everything I can to avoid that and avoid the facts or avoid any opposing belief. It's just not there. And also, really quick, going back to the non-statements, there were 46 tweets in the last 100 that were non-statements, so either retweets or videos of any kind. Most of those were from a journalist who they were all pretty much, it's kind of like self-affirmation, I guess, because it was a retweet, but it was from a journalist who favored Trump, and he would post stories that were positive about Trump, but it was just the same journalist. It was never anyone else. So I thought that was important to point out. So, in conclusion, I think cognitive dissonance is extremely, extremely present in the president's Twitter account and on social media. But not just him. It's present everywhere, especially right now. And I think it's extremely relevant, and I think it's a huge problem that we need to face. And it was interesting doing this project because it's always interesting when you feel certain things or you feel certain ways, and you never really have a way to find the words for it or find what you're trying to say or the feeling that you're having. So being able to know what cognitive dissonance is and being able to now point it out and know that it's cognitive dissonance, I think it's really cool. And that's one huge thing that I took away from this is I became more aware of it around me, and I became more aware of it on social media and these various social media platforms like Twitter and Facebook especially. But so yeah, that's kind of where I landed on this. There were some limitations. I felt that I I think for future studies that would do something similar to this, I would look at a much bigger sample if you could. I would also look at other samples, like such as other past presidents. I know Twitter's new for presidents to be tweeting, but I would look back at like Barack Obama's Twitter account, because Twitter kind of became a huge thing back when he was the president. So I would definitely look at that, and moving forward, I would continue to just look at more and more samples and compare and contrast all of these samples. But yeah, I think that will do it. Again, my name is Jake Capizzuto. Here are all of my sources. Thank you again for listening, and yeah, thank you again. Have a good summer.